What's up, 2026? Number one channel in spiritual intellectual honesty. So, I want to talk about this whole issue with these Epstein files. As it is right now, this conspiratorial information that everybody has access to, that everybody's looking into, right? This information that's now on the surface, right? This gives us a chance to see and test ourselves and other people who we admired, right? Because a lot of these people we admired who are in these Epstein files, right? But those who are talking about it, we see where they stand. We see where they're at, where their mindset is. We can see if they're lying or what agendas do they have. This is a good chance for us to see what level of consciousness are you? What level of enlightenment do you have? Right? Because there's different levels of enlightenment. We're going to talk about that in another video, though. Are you woke? And I'm not talking about the ambiguous woke that the mass is talking about. I'm talking about, are your eyes open to see things as they are? You understand? Are you seeing the reality of the world as it is? Okay. So the issue I want to talk about is this Barack Obama situation, right? The first one I want to talk about is this whole thing as everybody's cheering and celebrating that Barack Obama isn't on the Epstein files. Yet. I'll say yet, because who knows, right? But Barack Obama was still associated with Diddy. And people forget, people get short memories. People get sidetracked. But guess who also wasn't on the Epstein files? Diddy. So here we have to understand, right, how these things work, right? Diddy and Epstein are basically two sides of the same coin, right? But they're different, right? So we comparing the two, right? They're two different companies, two different conglomerates, two different, you know what I'm saying? Two different, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, companies. So we could just say Epstein, right? We'll compare Epstein, right, to Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola is a known product, right? All over the world, access to around the world mostly, just about everywhere in the world. I can go to a 5-star hotel, 5-star restaurant, and get Coca-Cola. I can't go to a 5-star hotel, a 5-star restaurant, and get RC. You understand what I'm saying? I may not be able to get Pepsi. So when we comparing the two, right? Epstein, Coca-Cola, Diddy, Pepsi, or maybe RC. Who knows? No, we'll just say Pepsi, right? The two, right? Coke and Pepsi are two different companies, right? They're both in competition with each other, right? But they're not necessarily working against each other, right? They're in competition, but they're not enemies, right? If you haven't, check out the documentary Coke and Pepsi, right? It's a particular documentary. I might put it in the description. It's pretty fascinating. It talks about how Coke and Pepsi does business, right? How Coke get their money and how they, with the restaurants and how they saturate. It talks about how Pepsi buys, businesses and saturates their product and all. They go about things just two different ways, right? Just like, you know, Epstein, just like Diddy. So here's the thing with Diddy, right? Diddy and Epstein, they're similar stuff they were doing and everything, but they're different, right? Epstein had more access to, of the wheels of society, right? Banking, education, you know, government, politics. You feel me? All these different things. Diddy, not so much. Diddy was just like celebrities, you know, athletes and all this other stuff. And really, these are really like the lower class of wealthy and important people entertainment, right? Right? And on the upper echelon of society, right, they're like the broke people, really. I mean, just to be honest and weighing things, right? They're not, a lot of celebrities and these musicians, right, they on borrowed money. I mean, they live, they're rich, millionaires, but they're not like that. You know what I'm saying? They're not in the higher upper class of wealth and, notoriety. You understand what I'm saying? So we have to understand the difference. But Barack Obama was with Diddy. And in 96 they say Jay-Z, he was with Epstein. And this is before where Diddy was just kind of like, you know, becoming that party animal, you know what I'm saying? He wasn't he was just getting there. But we see the connections, right? Diddy was just basically like the Boule Island, right? He wasn't, you know what I'm saying? And Epstein was like Fantasy Island, you feel me? So, Epstein too, he had access to the science, the scientific stuff and technologies and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? This is why Bitcoin is going down, right? Because we forget that cryptocurrency was supposed to be used for the black market. And really, that's what Bitcoin might be Epstein coin, really. Actuality. You know what I'm saying? That Japanese dude, we ain't never seen him. I believe that's all a fraud. We know that's a fraud. So this is what I'm saying, man. You understand what I'm saying? With the thing with Obama. Okay. So if we flexing, if people are flexing on that he's not on Epstein files, right, it's really silly. It's really stupid. You understand? Because he's connected to bullshit. Okay. Barack Obama, when he came into politics, right, we were manipulated because we were possessed by the idea of the American dream, right? We saw his so-called wife and his children that's not really his, that's not really theirs, because she had surrogates, right? So people were manipulated by this, right? We all were manipulated by this by some shape, form, or fashion. People voted for him. I didn't. But he was considered a well-established politician. And he still is. Like, right now, he's coming back up. Obama is going to be used, to do something else. Even though he may not could be president no more or whatever, who knows what the world is going to be as far as America is concerned. because things is changing, but Obama will continue to be used in politics. Okay. So the powers that be might have told Obama, yeah, don't deal with Epstein. You know what I'm saying? Because the powers that be, they plan for contingencies. They, they do these things years, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years in advance, right? They have contingency plans and, not like regular human beings and, the sheep, we do things different, but they do things on a totally different level. So this is what I'm saying. We have to understand and we have to see how these pieces and these groups are and the way they stand. But Diddy, Epstein, same coin, basically. This next thing I want to talk about, right? This whole thing with the monkeys and the apes, the gorillas with the Obama with Trump. Now, here's the thing. If you think that in reality, I'm not talking about the drama and the soap opera politics. I'm talking about in reality that Trump and Obama are enemies. You are a fool. You are a dummy if you think that. Because actuality, Barack Obama and Trump are very good comrades. Now, how do we know this for sure, for certainty? Well, we just take a little back down memory lane. We just time travel a little bit and we go back to when the Carter funeral happened. Remember in the Jimmy Carter's funeral, how Barack Obama and Trump were talking. When you looked, we didn't see what we couldn't hear what they was talking about, and I don't read lips, but we see how they were interacting at this funeral, and we see how other people were interacting. They were very comfortable with each other. They were friends, and then that was obvious. Anybody who knows the basics of body language and vibes or whatever, you understand? And it's significant because they were at a funeral. A funeral is a ritualistic event that happens naturally, right? Funerals and weddings is where people like that, the underworld, just say like the mobsters and stuff like that, they do a lot of business with funerals and weddings, at funerals and weddings, right? But it's even more so in politics, right? Because politics is the underworld too. A lot of things go down that we don't know, but Obama and Trump are very adept at some rituals we see, some we don't. And they were very comfortable at this particular ritual of this funeral of Jimmy Carter. You understand what I'm saying? So from that we know that politics. To give you another example, with when Obama was president, we would see George Bush Sr. and Bill Clinton. They used to be like a trinity. We used to see them all the time doing stuff. And, when Barack Obama was president, right? So this whole thing with politics and Democrats and all this other stuff and doesn't mean anything. It's just as far as it means something to the little people, it means something to the sheeple, but to the actual politics is nothing. Okay. So all this like with racism, and people are not responding to it like that. But Trump just did that for his, to keep his people happy, and believe me, Barack Obama isn't taking it personally. You know what I'm saying? So this whole thing is a farce, right? Barack Obama, I say Barack Obama is probably, is kind of like grooming, and helping Trump to a degree. You understand? They're in this together. You understand? This whole thing, people understand. Like, this is not just Trump. You know what I'm saying? Trump is the perfect person, just like Barack Obama was to do what he did. Trump is the perfect person right now in office to do what he's doing, right? Because the president doesn't do anything on his own volition. They have people to answer to, right? Right? This should be known, right? I mean, this should be common knowledge, right? So, Trump is the perfect person right now to do what needs to be done according to the people who got him there. All right? You see what I'm saying? So, is clear, right? These things should be known, right? These should, I mean, but, just people are new. I mean, this whole thing with the Epstein files is new to a lot of people. So we have to understand this. If there was no Barack Obama, it wouldn't be no Trump like that, right? Barack Obama initiated Trump, right? Remember they had that little dinner, whatever, and they were doing, they were roasting Trump or something like that, and Barack Obama said some lame ass joke about Trump and this and that, and he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna run for president." It was like a joke, and then, yeah, see, that's how that happened. But see, that wasn't on purpose. That was him, pushing that forward, right? So when the whole thing with Barack Obama, when he gave the world this false hope, right? But he mostly gave black people, this false hope, right? The powers that be, they saw this. They saw how everyone was looking at Barack Obama like he was this demigod, this hero, you know what I'm saying, this savior. And they couldn't wait to put somebody in that position and really make that person. And that person was Trump. You understand what I'm saying? They envied us, you know what I'm saying, even though they knew better than us Barack Obama wasn't going to do anything and his agendas and all that, but our hope and just our, the worship, that people were doing, they envy, the powers that be envied that. It was like, yeah, we got to put our person in there. And they, and that's what they did. And that was Obama. Everything orchestrated as it was, everything, Barack Obama, your favorite president, the most satanic modern president that existed, my opinion. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, see things as it is, and don't be fooled because, a lot of things ain't how it seemed, ain't how it looked. So if you're going to deal with this pig, these Epstein files, make sure you cook this pig properly. Talk to you soon.